Hey guys, this is Chelsea.
And Eric.
Welcome to Breaking Barriers. This episode, we are going to talk about isolation.
Yay.
Okay. So, we figured out pretty early on that we were going to have to go into pretty intense isolation to keep Gabriel safe. With him having no thymus and no T cells at all made in his body, we knew that isolation was going to be the most important thing that we could do to protect him until we could get him to transplant in North Carolina.
Let's rewind a little. That's going in.
I hate you. So when babies are born, they get newborn screening, and part of that newborn screening screens for SCIDs, which is severe combined immunodeficiencies. When you have a baby, they prick their heel, they do a little blood test, and they test them. One of the things is for SCIDs. So when they came in and they I noticed that they rolled a cart out and it had the gowns, gloves, mask, because this was all pre-COVID. So nobody was wearing masks or anything. And they said hey, Felda's newborn screening. Usually this is just some weird thing. It's probably false. And I was reassured by one of the doctors, this is probably false. Fast forward, they obviously retested him. And they ended up calling the surgeon that did his heart surgery and said, "Hey, did you remove this kid's thymus? Did he have a thymus?" And the surgeon was like, "Oh, no, actually, he didn't have one." I guess that's weird.
So can we pause on that? What is, athymia is rare.
Yeah, it's rare, but
for the surgeon to see he doesn't have a thymus, why was that not a red flag to, hey,
Well, my understanding is sometimes in kids with complex stuff, it can be somewhere else in the body.
He did have other things in
he
other places.
was weird. He only had he had 3 testicles and 1 kidney
Wasn't
and
one
a weird heart.
in his abdomen?
It was inside his hernia.
Yeah.
Which was weird. But yeah, so Gabe had weird anatomy anyway, so I don't think the surgeon really oh my gosh, he doesn't have a thymus. We didn't know he had DiGeorge at the time, and so it didn't really, that was just a puzzle piece that slowly was moving into place. So now, because we actually currently at our hospital have more, it's more than just Gabe, so now they're kind of more on high alert to
more than just Gabe as far as complete DiGeorge.
Yeah, as far as congenital athymia.
Yeah, that.
We have multiple other patients that have congenital athymia, which is really rare. And even they've made several comments about our zone being a hot zone, because we cover there's only 3 children's hospitals in Texas. And so Texas is considered a hot spot because we take other state kids. So, because I asked about that, I was like, how did this happen? And they explained, we're just kind of a hot spot. So, anyway, I remember the infectious disease doctor pulling me aside and explaining, hey, we're running this blood work. We're going to do some genetic testing. Just kind of explaining what was going on. And I did not fully grasp or understand at the time, okay, so they did genetic testing. He has DiGeorge. I had read about that once he had a kidney issue, and then we mentioned the heart thing. I started looking up what potentially, because they said potentially he could have a genetic issue. So I started kind of researching and looking into DiGeorge, and then they said, he actually has what's called complete DiGeorge. We need to run several more tests. I mean, it was a gamut of tests, and one of the tests didn't even come back until that December that officially affirmed that he did have congenital athymia along with his complete DiGeorge syndrome. So that was a really long waiting process.
Is that the one? Because I remember
when we got tested.
Well, no, I remember there was a test being done for SCIDs. And I felt like that took a really long time.
So that one is the one that didn't come back. So you can have SCIDs. Yeah, SCIDs, charge, or complete DiGeorge. And it's one of those 3 things pretty much is what they told us. And so they said out of all of it, complete DiGeorge was the lesser of three evils, which is kind of sad.
Yeah.
But they were really hoping that he had complete DeGeorge because our doctor at the time had a complete DeGeorge patient 20 years or 21 years prior. And
That's just how rare they are.
they had not seen a kid like Gabe for 21 years. And there was two patients at that time. And I think they might've been a couple years apart. I'm really not sure. That's, HIPAA. That was not information that I was privy to, which is fine. But those kids, they were part of the research. So they got transplanted when they were just a couple months old. So at the time they told us, by the time he's 2 months old, we'll have everything squared away and we're going to put you on a plane. You'll get transferred from Cooks to Duke and,
immediately.
And, you're not even going to have to take this baby home. And, there was
almost 4 years later,
so much hope at that time. Because this was her experience with it. She had another patient and this is what they did. And, at the time, FDA was still not approved,
Trying to go down on the wrong road here.
Well, I'm not going down the wrong road. You're going down the wrong road because you're already getting
my mind is
already getting fiery about it. I'm
fiery right now.
I know, and
we're here to talk about isolation.
We are here to talk about isolation. So anyway, at the initial diagnosis, this is what we were thinking. We were going to go and we were never going to have to take him home. So we just knew we need to be careful in the hospital. So the time they told me he has no T cells, he essentially has no immune system. Well, he has no immune system. I started having going out clothes. I never left the room anyway. I never spent the night away from him. I still to this day have never spent a night away from him when he was in the hospital. That's just who I am. I just could not leave him. And even the one night I tried to leave, I came back at 2 a.m. Walking back into CICU because I can't leave him. But anyway, so I used to have clothes that I would change into to leave the room. And then I would change back and everything that started coming into the room, we started sanitizing and, we had a long conversation about what we were going to do while I was in the hospital to keep him safe. But
very long, multiple days.
Yeah. And a lot of oh my gosh, my son is a bubble boy. And it's very funny because she actually referenced the John Travolta movie, Bubble Boy.
Never seen it.
You've never seen it?
You've never seen Face Off with John Travolta and Nicolas Cage. So
okay. Movie night date. Movie night date. I will watch your John Travolta movie if you watch mine. Okay, deal. Popcorn? Okay, anyway. I almost said something about haters and popcorn. I want to pop you. Anyway, so we started as soon as they said no T cells, immediately our life started changing. And
did they tell us what that meant back then? Because of what's going on now with the other parents. Because I remember we researched what it meant that there was no T cells.
Okay, so I mean they told us no T cells, no immune system. And then me being me, I actually the librarian at the hospital got to know me really well.
I remember that.
Do you remember my folder? I said, I told them straight up, I said, either you give me the information and the research. I want other children's, information. Or not information, other children's hospital information. I wanted research papers. I wanted case studies. And I said, either you give it to me and you control what I'm learning, or I'm going to be out of control and I'm going to the internet. And so she had gotten to know me very well by that point. And she was just like, okay, we're going to give you the research. So there was all of these case studies done by Dr. Margaret at Duke. I hope I said her name right.
It's Margaret.
I don't know, but she's the wonderful saint that came up with this whole protocol. And
transplant.
Well, yeah,
I wouldn't really call it a protocol.
But back then, it was starting the antibiotics and all of the prophylactic stuff, and it was it was a protocol though.
There was a protocol.
Now it's a thymus transplant.
Yeah.
But at the time it was just kind of what do we do to keep these kids long enough to save them? Um, so anyway, they gave me a nice thick stack of everything, from his kidney stuff, his heart stuff, but specifically about Complete to George. And she told me, like, don't hang your hat on the life expectancy. Oh, this seems like such a silly conversation now. But she said, don't hang my hat on the life expectancy of 2 years, because he'll be transplanted way before that. And you won't even ever have to worry.
We've worried and worried
And
and
worried
worried.
and worried. Oh my gosh. And we have lived the worst case scenarios.
We need to get back towards the topic of isolation, because I see the road. I see the exit to the road, and I am about to take it.
Okay. So fast forward, the Duke Hospital actually got us in a thymus transplant support group where
On Facebook.
on Facebook. It's a private group where we actually got to meet other parents that turns out were living in isolation. And one of the moms, she was very real. She had, gosh, I remember looking at my phone and reading these messages from her. Because I like posted, this is my kid, this is kind of what's going on. Like, I'm scared to death. Like, I need advice. Somebody please just help me understand. Um, and Lord have mercy, I was put in my place about isolation. She explained that they had been waiting for years. And she said, you're going to take that baby home and you're going to keep him safe. And it was like the most, like, she gave me all the confidence, like I was capable of doing this. And she said exactly what they did. No shoes in the house. Kids don't go to school. Lysol wipe everything. Sanitizing wipes are your best friends. You don't go into the ER. You don't wait in waiting rooms. These are the specialists that her daughter had. And just like, it was so overwhelming. And over there,
I'm just old.
you are old. I got my first gray hair though, so I'm joining you.
100, 200, 300 to go.
Yeah, well, you're old. Um, but I remember that conversation was so overwhelming. And I went back to the same infectious disease doctor, and I'm crying and I'm showing her these messages and I'm scared to death. And she goes, this can't be right. And she was absolutely like, there's no way, this cannot be right. Like, these kids can't survive like this. Like, this is, oh my gosh. And we were both just sitting there like, what is happening? And she was in fact correct. We have now waited 3.5 years and we still don't have a transplant date.
Almost lost Gabe 1, 2.
So many times this year
3.
alone, we almost lost Gabe probably at least 6 or 7 times.
And we're currently waiting to see, if he's gonna run a fever.
I know.
After coming off these 6 weeks antibiotic course.
Yeah, it's been a fun ride. Gabe likes to keep us on our toes. So at that point, we didn't really have family come up visiting anyway.
No, because at that point, like, you'd looked into your library research. I was on the internet and, listening to what you were telling me from what you were researching.
Yeah.
I had been Googling, what athymia was, what no T cells were. And around that time, and almost immediately, we started wearing masks. This was pre-COVID, before COVID was even
that was the first.
Starting.
That was our first thing, our first like
that
isolation
was in August, end of August of 2019.
Middle of August 2019.
And before any anti-maskers come at me when you've done months of research on the efficacy of masks.
But that was, I think, definitely our first like big change was our kids started wearing masks. We started wearing masks.
So my oldest son, Jonathan, we sent to live with my sister after we talked to them for like, what, a week or two?
It was 2 days.
It was 2 days. ADHD, anxiety, depression, disassociation.
It was literally like I was sitting in CICU awaiting his second open heart surgery. calling Emily saying like this is a long haul situation.
Well, it
Like,
wasn't you calling her. Then didn't they they contacted us. Anyways, we
yeah.
ended up sending him down to San Marcos, and he was there for that fall semester of school, living with my sister and
Okay,
brother-in-law.
but pause. Because not only did we have to agree to it, but we had to talk with his
Well,
mom.
yeah, it wasn't like, hey, we
No.
sent him down there, and that's
No, this was like
we had to
we
figure out every logistical part
yeah,
of it,
between
finances.
me, him, and his ex-wife,
Yeah,
who like this was our first like huge co-parenting thing.
it
Like
really was.
it really was. And I want to pause and take a minute, like, holy baloney, the growth between the three of us.
All right, let's move on.
No,
Anyways,
we're not going to move on because we need to have this moment. This wasn't us being controlling or her being a bad mom or something along those lines. This was the,
yes, we are all in a better place with her now, and I admit that, and it's really weird.
I know, but I want to give Jessie her moment. Okay.
Yes, thank you, Jesse. Here's your thank you. Now, we love you. Can we move on?
Oh, you still love her?
Oh my god.
Just kidding. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Baby mama love all around for sure.
Anyways, we figured out all the logistical stuff, the finances. Um, you know,
And
that was a really
they had been praying about it because when I talked to Emily about it, she was like, "Oh, this is weird." And then Andrew was like, "Yep, we got to do it. I've been praying about it." And like,
so that's what it was. That's what I remembered was that they had been praying about it, not that they reached out.
before we ever reached out to them, though, they had been
Yeah.
praying about like taking Jonathan, specifically about taking Jonathan. So
Yeah.
that was kind of cool that like God worked that out. It was heavy on all five of our hearts that like Emily and Andrews was exactly where Jonathan needed to be. And it turned out to be like hands down the best choice that we made.
Because the plan was to homeschool all the kids, but with Gabriel needing his second open heart surgery, which we didn't
even know if he was going to make it through that.
Yeah, and we didn't know if he was gonna have to have another one pretty soon after that, what that would look like. That the future was just unknown, except for we knew that we needed to isolate ourselves from the world, from our families, from our friends, and just the six of us. That's what we became about 3.5 years ago. And so sending Jonathan away was hard. One of the hardest things, I don't know about you, but for me, that I've ever done. I mean, I don't know if you remember how it used to be when he would go to Jesse's over the weekend when he was a toddler.
Yeah, our toddler used to starve himself when his brother would leave. Like, we did not know how this was going to go.
I was talking about me.
Well, yeah, no, you used to cry. You were more upset about it than Jonathan. He was like, "Peace out, Dad." Yeah. You were like, "My baby."
Yeah. So no, it wasn't easy, but we had to isolate ourselves, and being able to homeschool him was not something that was.
It wasn't feasible at the time.
It wasn't feasible right
like
then.
It wasn't going to happen.
Because we had our other two kids that.
Ella was 2 with a broken collarbone.
Yeah.
And Isaiah was 4, no broken bones. And Jonathan was about to be 9, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or was he about to be 10? He was about to be 9.
He was about to be 9
with a broken ankle.
Yep.
Broke his growth plate. Yeah. And then Gabe was in CICU. So it was just, I know for me personally, like sending him to Emily and Andrews, it kind of felt like we were sacrificing one kid for the good of another kid. Like that's what it felt like. This whole journey, that's how it felt like.
The safest option and
the healthiest environment for him to be into.
And the most trusting, because you know that I do not trust people.
Yeah. But like Emily and Andrew work at the school that he was attending. Did Emily work there at the time?
I grew up with her.
Did Emily
No,
work there
she didn't.
Okay. So, he went to work with his uncle Andrew and, that was really cool. He thought that was so cool.
So at that point, that's where we were at beginning our life of isolation. That was that September?
That was right before his 9th birthday.
Yeah. So we didn't even have him for his 9th birthday.
Nope. That was the first
birthday.
See,
those 3 months of my life, I don't
I don't know what you were doing. I was up here.
I mean, like looking back, it's hard for me to recall like
I know,
events
like,
and
my best friend had Isaiah. Rachel had Isaiah.
when I started
You,
working again.
yeah. And then Ella would be with my mom. Like,
So
they tag
when I
teamed.
started working again, there was still isolation for me. I wore a mask at work. Like I didn't take it off. I had an N99 mask. I had an N99 mask just like this one that I wore at work for how long were my shifts?
I don't remember, bro. I disassociated.
12
I was
hour
trying to survive.
shifts at Whitney. I was doing 12-hour shifts in this mask, manual labor. So again, people that I can't breathe. I'm not gonna go down that road.
Do not.
Not
Woo!
going down it. So I've always worn a mask like this for the last 3.5 years.
And this is what the infectious disease doctor recommended for him to do to go back to work, because she was very nervous for him to go to work. We were nervous about him going to work.
So even while Gabe was in the hospital, I would get home. I would take my clothes off, jump in the shower, put the clothes on to wash, put clean clothes on.
And not like walk through the house with the clothes on. Like,
yeah, no, I'd go in the back door where our laundry room was, take my clothes off, throw them in the washer, Lysol my hands and arms because I'm touching doorknobs, and I
run through the house like this.
Yeah, then I'm cleaning the doorknobs. Literally, like
no, not. I mean, I'm laughing.
We're joking and laughing, but like,
but it's because it was traumatic.
Yeah, yeah. As a former EMT, you know, and I blame my
preceptor.
My preceptor.
Yeah.
The first time I went to put gas in the ambulance, I got out of the truck, grabbed the gas pump, and as soon as I grabbed it, he's in the passenger seat, leans out the front door of the driver's door, and goes, "Hey, you just gonna touch that?" I was like, "Yeah, I gotta put gas in." And he said these words: "How many people do you think have touched that in the last 24 hours? How many people have, you know, rubbed their nose, grabbed their nose, you know, other things, grabbing things, and didn't wash their hands and touch that pump?" From that day forward, I think there's been 2 times that I have touched a gas pump without a glove on or a Lysol wipe.
And it's like in my mind because you were like, "It burns."
I had a breakdown. What
you did?
A couple, like 2 months ago.
Was it 2 months ago?
It was very recent.
It was super recently.
Because
in the Walmart parking lot.
You were up here, weren't you?
I was.
So it was like last month.
Yeah.
You know, the kids have been going back and forth, and I went to get gas at Walmart, and someone took the hand sanitizer and Lysol wipes out of my truck.
It was Jonathan.
So I had to touch the gas pump. And then inside the little Walmart gas station, the Murphy, whatever it is, they didn't sell hand sanitizer. They didn't have Lysol, any type of sanitizing wipes. So I had to touch my truck handle. I had to touch my keys. I had to touch my phone. I had to touch my steering wheel, the gear shifter, and go into Walmart. I had to touch my mask and put that on. Actually, I had my mask on, so I never took it off.
Yeah, you never took your mask off.
I don't touch my mask with dirty hands.
And as you can see here, folks, this is what OCD looks like now.
Diagnosed.
But it is a side effect to athymia that they don't talk about because it happens in the parents. Like, you're not the only one. So one of our friends, she was talking about, so obviously they're in isolation too. Her kid has no immune system. And
we are really all over the place.
We are.
This.
And she scrubs her hands so much that like her hands bleed. Like, I'm serious. OCD and the need to keep your child safe. Like, you cannot tell us it is irrational because literally one germ can kill our kid. One germ put our kid with a central line in him, unable to absorb and losing a 10% of his body weight and heart surgery because of heart failure. That was one germ.
I feel like you kind of just like right over that with the norovirus and not absorbing nutrients. You just said anyways.
Did I say something wrong?
You really just like.
Yeah, I just slid by it like we were sliding through.
No, you didn't say he wasn't absorbing what?
Nutrients. He wasn't absorbing nutrients. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
He wasn't absorbing. That's, you know.
Anyway, so that has been our life for the last 3.5 years. Even when they came home, especially when they came home.
Oh, I was so scared to leave.
She was scared to leave. Were you scared when I would come home from work?
Yeah, but also I know you, and
my OCD was full-fledged, 100% like.
No, I was sad for you though, babe. I was so sad for you. Like, oh, you were making friends and people really liked you. And
I was moving up.
yeah, he was moving up. He was doing so well at this company. And then, like, he had to become so unreliable because we didn't have childcare. Like, obviously, we can't have childcare.
And Gabriel would have
And Gabe would have
emergencies.
emergencies and he'd have to call off work, or, he was going through chemo. I think he was going through chemo when he got fired. But, um, it was, that's one thing, is isolation has really made the two of us. It's like us against the world. Our family unit is me, him, and our 4 kids. And that's what we have. We don't have, aunts and, I mean, we have aunts and uncles, we
We
have
have our
family,
family. We have our
but they
friends that we
can't
still talk to.
physically come in and come to a doctor's appointment or watch kids. Like, okay, so my aunt, for instance, she has watched Gabe in the hospital, so I can take a break because, again, like I said, I don't leave the hospital. But when I tell you, she comes in, she takes a shower, she puts on a gown or two, she puts on, a couple masks, she has to wear gloves, and then she's petrified to hold him. But, like, he was a baby, and I literally had a mental breakdown at one point, February of 2020, and I needed help. And so my aunt stepped up and she came and she would sit there with him. And it was only for like an hour because I was a freak and I couldn't leave him. These are not healthy things. We're not saying that any of this
We
is
are sharing what we've been through and what isolation has been like for
yeah,
us.
we're not sharing this as like a recommendation to be crazy.
Let's go over recommendation. If you're still watching, let's give some recommendations for isolation real quick.
Don't wear shoes in the house. If you can.
That should be obvious, but I guess
No, that's
yes.
not obvious
I
because
know it's not.
I grew up in a white household. We wear shoes in the house.
Yeah, no, we did too. It's like the gas pump. You walk everywhere. Think about all the people that walk there. People spitting on the ground, peeing on the ground, doing other things on the ground. That's on the bottom of your shoe.
Yeah.
You want to bring that in your house? No, thank you.
Not to your baby. That's going to be crawling around and moving around and doing all the
Healthy,
things.
immune compromised, or normal immune functioning baby.
When I thought about it, I was like, that's actually gross. I was wearing like cowboy boots and like in my house, and my kids were crawling around and putting their hands in their mouth. Like, that's no wonder they were sick. Like, that's nasty.
Next recommendation.
Anyway.
And these recommendations probably will lead to things like OCD, anxiety.
Groceries.
An expert here.
Yeah, groceries. We do not bring groceries in our house.
This is something that I don't think a lot of people in isolation do, is sanitize everything that comes into the house.
Let me tell you,
it is costly. You got to buy the sanitizing wipes. It is time consuming. A grocery run.
Look, and it's cold and raining. You remember doing the groceries when we were on the land in that one rainstorm? Oh my gosh, we were soaking wet. And
who's we?
I was out there with you.
I remember you standing in the door of the camper looking at me.
I would never. I'm not spoiled. I was out there with you though, because
anyways, a grocery run will,
you can't just go in a grocery store, y'all. Like,
and grocery pickups are nice.
Thank you, Okay, like I'm not really.
COVID,
let's not thank COVID, but like because of COVID, grocery pickups became a thing, and that saved people like us. Because me and Target orders. Okay, I use these apps like it is going out of style. HEB, Walmart. I don't use Aldi, but yeah, we can't just like run in the store. Oh crap, we're out of diapers. What do we do? I have sat in a parking lot while my friend goes inside to buy a pack of diapers for me because I couldn't go inside with Gabe.
Gabriel has never been inside a store.
Never.
And he will not until he has a functioning immune system.
And he'll probably still wear a mask.
He's never, he's been inside like my parents, but with a mask on.
That was a tornado warning.
Well, yeah.
We could have died.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Is like Gabe has not been. This is the first place he's been that's not the hospital and not our house.
Oh my gosh. So as you can tell, this is kind of the first time we've talked about some of this stuff.
So we're just kind of all over the place. So if you're still here, thanks. We got more to talk about.
Yeah, this kind of spazzing. This is the first playground he's ever got to play on, and like we Lysol wipe it, so it's real clean for the rest of them.
Yeah.
Yay. Other recommendations? Oh, so if you can work from home, definitely work from home. So we took a different kind of financial route.
Hold on. If you can't work from home, wear a mask.
At work.
Yes, there are some people that medically, they can't go prolonged periods of time wearing a mask. But just because it makes you uncomfortable, uh,
Eric, no, you're getting too. No. So wear a mask at work. And when you get home, like, you take your clothes directly off, put them in a trash
don't
bag
walk through
right
your
at your
house in those clothes.
door.
You need to
Yeah,
designate
like at
a
the
laundry
door.
basket, or if your laundry room is at a back door, side door, whatever, an entrance to your residence of living needs to be designated your spot for their contaminated clothes. If you're
You have to think of it like Monsters Inc., like with the sock. And, like, you know what I'm talking about? Like, that's how
yes,
Isaiah sees it all. When he saw that scene in Monsters Inc., he was like, oh, they spotted a germ. Also, your kids, they get weird, okay? We've been in isolation since they were itty bitty, and they don't know much other than isolation. So, Lord help our children if they go out into the world.
yeah,
Because it's gonna get wild. Okay, it's gonna get weird. Our 7-year-old for sure has OCD.
yeah.
Like, he had a meltdown, and I do mean a full-on meltdown last week because he didn't have the right fitting mask, and I was trying to give him an adult mask to walk through the Ronald McDonald House. And he stood at that lobby. There was no moving, screaming at the top of his lungs about his mask. And like it was heartbreaking. Oh my God, it was so heartbreaking. He would not move. It was not happening. He did not have a proper mask. They had to come all the way in to get him, the
A
correct
mask out of her room.
and then come all the way back out. And then the second he put his mask on, he's like, okay, I can go now. I'm safe. Like, that's how serious it is. Like, we will definitely have to have an episode about mental health and kind of touch more on kids' mental health and adult mental health and
And we
supplements.
have,
And
reached out and starting to look.
he has his first therapy
Yeah.
appointment Tuesday, but it has to be virtual. All of our appointments are virtual. Do you know, like, with isolation,
Let's add that. Okay, so recommendations.
counseling, therapy.
Yes,
Most
but
hospitals will help.
anything, if you're living in isolation, if you have a kid with congenital athymia or an immune compromised kid, family member, whatever, virtual appointments, sessions,
You
whatever.
can have a family meal with your parents, like,
We've done it a few times.
yeah.
Like, I don't need it. I'm an introvert. Like,
Okay, but I meant, like, okay, let's do this. What do you miss? Like, what has isolation taken the most from you?
being able to go, all of us, to my parents and hang out inside, not in 50-degree, 40-degree weather, or
Like, I hear you, but we always fought a lot.
Who?
Your parents and you.
It was a toxic thing that I grew up with, and I'm just used to it. I guess I miss it. I need therapy.
You want me to give you some toxicity,
but
baby?
therapy doesn't work for me. I don't know.
Yeah.
I miss going on dates with you. What has isolation taken from you the most? Did I say that right?
I don't think that sounds right.
What has isolation taken from you that you miss the most?
Family, like time with family. Like, you can't get time back. You can get groceries back. You can get all kinds of things back. You can get, they will eventually be able to join.
Oh, geez, your answer's already better than mine. I had a specific thing, and you're just like going deep.
Yeah, that was my plan. Official, I don't want to tell you. But our other kids, they'll be able to join teams again. They'll be able to go to school again if they want to. They will be able to get some kind of normalcy back from things, but they're never going to be 2 again. They're never going to be 3 again. They're never going to walk for the first time. They're never going to, have those birthdays back. They're never going to get timed with loved ones that now have dementia or cancer or whatever. Like, those times,
It's gone.
It's gone. They're never going to get that back. They're never going to be able to build those relationships the same. I've missed out on time with, like, my grandfather and, my uncle and aunt and my mom. And, those times, like, we're never going to get those back. Nobody is ever going to get the chance to hold Gabe as a baby again. We're never going to get to be 28 and 34 again and celebrate our anniversaries together or our birthdays together again. Like, those things are just, we don't get that back. And
There's no way good. There's no good way to celebrate things like that in isolation when you have kids.
Because you can't have a babysitter come watch your kids so we could go spend time together. Like all of our kids are asleep right now. That's how this is happening. We had to wait.
Well, not all of them.
It is 12:30 and we're just now being able to do this because we have to wait for 90% of them to go to sleep. You know, they're never going to get those kindergarten years back and the times making friends. Like I have had one of my good friends I've had since I was 7. My kids are not going to get to say I've had the same friend since I was 5, since I was 7. I'm not going to have the neighbor. Like they're not going to have those experiences. And it's sad because we didn't get a choice in the matter. Like I think that's one thing is time and choices. We didn't get a choice on homeschooling. Like we just had to do it. Like I love homeschooling. Don't get me wrong. I really truly do. And I love the way that we do it. And I love the way that we've handled isolation, but we didn't get a choice in it. You know, we've cut ties with family members, but not because of a choice. It's because of what we've had to do to sacrifice for our children and not just Gabe, but all of our kids. The things that we've had to do to keep our family unit together, it's crazy. Honestly, we have sold all of our things. We live in an RV now. We have sacrificed our income because we felt it was more important to keep Gabe here and alive and as much together as a family and spend as much time with our child as we could because we knew one germ could kill our kid. And I mean, we still, it's not 100% guaranteed he'll ever have an immune system. But if he died tomorrow, I could happily say we took him to the beach. We gave him a good life in isolation. He will never know pain and being scared in a sense of the world. He does in a medical way, but he doesn't in the world. Like
He loves the world as far as the outdoors and hiking and nature.
yeah, he has a love for outdoors. He has a love for what God gave us, for the natural things. And, you know, he doesn't know what Chuck E. Cheese is or ponchos or, you know, we don't get to go out to restaurants. I do miss that, by the way.
He does know what Taco Bell
He
is.
does know what Taco Bell is. But even that, like, you got to nuke it in the microwave to make sure all the germs are killed. You know, we don't go eat fast food very often. Like, you know, there's so much that we have missed out on, but isolation has given us some things too.
Growing together, as far as
I don't
like
know
you
that
were
we would still be
talking.
married if we didn't have Gabe.
Um,
I love you as much as I can love you, but you wouldn't have changed as much as you've changed without
I would
going
not
through
have at
the
all.
things we have with Gabe. Like that's one thing that I'm like, I don't know that we would be married
That's
if
what I don't get about some of these dads, especially dads that are in my shoes that just walk away.
yeah, I don't get that either. And I feel bad for the moms that have to do this by themselves because like granted, I do a lot of the hospital stuff by myself, but like the love of my life, my best friend is doing this with me. And
I'm behind the scenes at the house,
he is behind the scenes. He's
keeping the other
keeping the
kids
kids
alive.
alive. I have so many pictures of like their life survival and they're like eating crappy food, but they're alive.
Hey, yeah, they're alive.
And you know what? Your relationship with Zay has like he says he loves you now.
Yep.
And that's because
In case
you
we
were
haven't missed him, he's
forced.
he's like definitely,
It's
probably, highly likely
that he
on the autism spectrum disorder. Whatever this thing is called now, he's on it. He's a little autistic.
he is currently going to be tested for it, but that's something I have to like take him into a clinic for. So we're working on the gonads to do that one. But you know, I think it has given us our family like we have game nights and we, you know, our life isn't shuffled around like we when we're not in the hospital and our life isn't upside down.
Yeah.
Like we have a slow living. Like we get to enjoy hikes together as a family. We get to I mean, I'm not going to say like we go on trips really, but I mean,
Well,
2021 was
hopefully, as
good.
long as Gabe doesn't run a fever and everyone's okay with this
Yeah.
vegetation being sterile, and it is sterile, we're gonna go camping.
In the next couple weeks.
in about a month for Eliana's 6th birthday. Wow.
Fixed. Oh.
And she is the smartest, most beautiful, funny, annoying, almost 6 year old.
She's so brave and so strong and just handles everything. Oh, I'm crying over here. Daughter turning. They all have turned 6. Like, good heavens.
Okay, so we went way off after recommendations.
Well, I
So
mean, but we
let's,
talked about isolation. We talked about
I
what it's
know,
given us and what it took away. Let's recap some of those recommendations. So, like we were
for
saying,
kids and
for
families in
yeah,
isolation. So no shoes in the house, sanitize groceries, anything that comes into the house. Like we open up packages, sanitize whatever's in the package, or if you can, let the package sit for 2 or 3 days.
oh, summer in Texas, man, we be letting
Yep.
all them canned goods sit in the car.
Um, sanitize everything. Wear a mask if you have to work. Wear a mask. I would not drink water inside the building. I would not eat inside the building. I'd go outside at lunch break or at the 15-minute break to eat a snack in my car, eat lunch in my car. Um, you got to let your job know the situation that you're in, and I believe that they would work with you. Not every day. I stood there for 8 to 12 hours doing manual labor. I would go maybe 2 minutes every hour, every 2 hours. Go outside, chug a water bottle, put the mask back on, get back to work. So, no shoes in the house, sanitize everything, mask at work. What
And
else?
when you have to let therapists and stuff inside, like, you're going to have a station that has the gowns, the gloves, and everything.
Hand sanitizer,
Hand
masks.
sanitizer. Yeah. All of that stuff. The little booties, the shoe booties. That was
Yep.
something that, like, your mom was like, here's some shoe booties. And I was like, oh, genius.
Yeah.
Oh, family gatherings. Family gatherings.
No family gatherings.
Well, we did outdoor,
Very
super distance,
limited.
and we don't do it very often. Like, we haven't done that.
We kind of we started off with one his first birthday, and then
Yeah.
it kind of dwindled to
The only people we will see now is like his parents.
outside at a distance.
Yeah. And like we'll serve food. So I just cook most of the time. And I serve everybody's plates. Like his mom doesn't touch anything. I do all of that. And she sanitizes all of her groceries and stuff too. She's absorbed some of the
Yeah.
most of the OCD. But I mean, it's very like we do it for his parents. And then my mom, again, she would, like we said in the last episode, she was in isolation with us. So she was just part of our circle. But now that she's not, we just won't really be able to see her, unfortunately. Um,
Hopefully, we'll get all this stuff together.
but like while we're up here, like my aunt and uncle will drop stuff off, and I like sanitize it as it's coming out of their car and everything, and they wear a mask. And like I said, nobody gets to hug or love on Gabe. Sucks because he's like super friendly. He would give everybody a hug, and he loves those like yellow isolation gowns. Yeah. Yeah, he's on this new thing. So again, this another Monsters Inc. reference. Mike Wazowski. So now he starts trying to sound like Mike Wazowski. And like a doctor walks in the room and he's like, hello. I'm like, oh my God. And they did say, like, oh, it's Mike Wazowski, Monsters Inc. I was like, George is fun.
All right. Any other recommendations?
I just check with your immunologist for most anything. Like ours has guided us so much on, things
They
to do.
but they haven't.
Well, but they don't. I mean, she now is well versed on a lot of things because she has so many patients. We don't see friends. The kids don't get to play. They don't get to go on play dates or do anything like that. Just I think that we've made the most out of our situation with finding things that we are capable of doing. Now, not every kid can enjoy the outdoors like Gabe can. I didn't know this, but like not every kid can be around plants and animals. Not every kid can actually like be outside at all. There are some kids that literally like can't be outside. So we are very grateful that our son can. He touches the dirt. He has a dog and a cat. Of course, we have central line right now, so he can't actually be around them. But before the central line was put in, he was around the dogs, the cats. I thought our infectious disease doctor was going to have a heart attack when I told her that. She was like, he what? And I was like, he's still alive. And she was just like looking at me. And I was like, I'm really sorry about that. But, he did fine with it. He didn't have any issues. He never had any issues eating orally once he had chemo. Um, it's just such a vast subject. Like there's so much that goes into isolation. And it's just it is such a big subject. Gabe woke up and is crying.
I'll end it. Well, I really feel like we were all over the place with all of this, and we honestly barely touched on isolation. Um, Chelsea had to run. Gabriel woke up, was crying, so she's going to take care of him. And I'm going to end this here. We really appreciate you guys spending this time with us, listening to our story. If you have a child with congenital athymia, if you live in isolation, if you have a heart warrior, if you are a heart warrior, anything like that, and you'd like to be on this podcast, please reach out to us. I will post our Twitter and Facebook down in the description below. And just know that you are not alone. Again, we're hoping to make this a once a week episode type deal. And we're really going to see in the next 24 to 48 hours how Gabe does coming off his 6-week antibiotic run. So we appreciate you guys. We love y'all. Thank you for sticking around with us. Hit that subscribe if you enjoyed this. We probably will do an isolation part 2. There's just so much to talk about. You guys are amazing. We will see y'all next time on Breaking Barriers.